all of Australia's living former Prime Ministers, bar one, have written and signed a joint letter calling for an end to religious hatred. The letter has been slammed by the Australia Palestine Advocacy Network, so here's what it said. The letter, published on Monday, was co-written and signed by former Labor and Liberal PMs Scott Morrison, Malcolm Turnbull, John Howard, Tony Abbott, Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd. Former Labor PM Paul Keating, who was in power between 1991 and 1996, was the only living former PM not involved. Keating said he had declined to sign after he was approached by Mark Liebler, the former president of the Zionist Federation of Australia, but Malcolm Turnbull tweeted that the letter was not drafted by the Federation, only the 6 former leaders drafted the statement. The letter begins, "Our multicultural nation's success is founded on the Australian values we all share and the respect we show for our fellow Australians' diversity of cultures and faiths. Whatever is happening elsewhere in the world, there is no place in our country for racial or religious hatred, and there is no more tenaciously evil race hatred than antisemitism. We believe we speak for the vast majority of Australians, of all faiths and of none, when we say we stand in solidarity with Jewish Australians at this time. Likewise, we stand too with the Australian Palestinian community whose families are dying and suffering in this terrible conflict. They too deserve our love and support." The former PMs called Hamas's October 7 attack cruel and murderous and said it was the single greatest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. They accused Hamas of provoking a reaction from Israel that would kill countless civilians in Gaza and having no more interest in the safety of Palestinians than they do of Israelis. They also urged Israel to avoid more civilian casualties. They said, "Israel promises it will do all it can to avoid civilian casualties. We urge it to do so with all of its humanity and skill. We are horrified by the thousands of deaths and injuries inflicted on innocent Palestinian civilians, including many, many Palestinian children." The statement concludes, "At this time, more than ever, we must, in the words of the 34th Psalm, seek peace and pursue it. And here at home, that is done by defending our Australian values, condemning hate speech and intolerance, and respecting the people of Australia in all our diversity." The Australia Palestine Advocacy Network responded on Tuesday and said the letter demonstrated explicit pro-Israel bias, failing to recognise Israeli responsibility for bombings that have already killed more than 8,000 people in Gaza. The group's president, Nasser Mashni, said the statement's reference to Australian values of love and respect rings hollow, given that the former Prime Ministers failed to acknowledge the tens of thousands of Australians expressing their horror about Israel's behaviour and ignored the anguish that many thousands of Palestinian Australians are currently feeling. Their significant platform should have been used to echo calls by the United Nations for an immediate ceasefire. How the former Prime Ministers could have the audacity to quote religious texts about peace while Israel is carpet bombing 2 million people in Gaza is gut-wrenching hypocrisy.